Hey there, and welcome to the channel. This is the place where we go behind the curtain and into the real life and history of William Shakespeare to find out what it was like to live in turn of the 17th century England the way Shakespeare would have lived it. If you like history and you like fun little details that you've never seen before, then this is the channel for you. Hit that like and subscribe button because we're here every week. You've probably heard about the play Midsummer Night's Dream. And from this play that Shakespeare wrote, you can surmise that midsummer is a day of celebration, full of mirth and general frivolity, and for some reason, donkeys. But what is midsummer anyway? Is it just the middle of summer, or is there something more than the name implies? Let's find out right now on That Shakespeare Life. Well, the short answer is that yes, midsummer is actually a celebration of the middle of summer. But why would they celebrate that? Well, that's because midsummer is the longest day of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere, and it can fall anywhere from June 20th to June 24th. This year in 2024, it's being celebrated on June 24th, and that's the traditional day of when midsummer was celebrated. The holiday actually coincides with a celebration known as St. John's Day, which is a birthday celebration for John the Baptist. This birthday celebration is marked by outdoor gatherings and specifically the lighting of three very particular bonfires that have different ingredients to them. I don't know the ingredients to all of them, but the third one contained bone and wood, and it was known as St. John's Fire. There's records in England of this tradition being observed where they're lighting these three particular fires to honor St. John the Baptist, going back as far as the 13th century, but historians suggest the celebration actually predates that by a great deal. But there are 13th century records of it happening in England. There's a monk in Shropshire that records him and his other monk people getting together and lighting these fires, and he calls them St. John's Fire, the third one again of the wood and bone. In the 16th century, historian John Stowe records the celebration of midsummer, and he calls it St. John's Day as well. And it's just this great Thanksgiving feast. He records it as people giving praise to God for the blessings bestowed upon them. And he talks about having a good harvest, having plentiful drink, and celebrating the presence of good friends, and the just blessing of being able to gather together with people you like and eat good things. The celebration of St. John's Day is actually unique among Catholic traditions because normally saints are celebrated on the day that they die. There's only three exceptions. Of course, Jesus has his birth celebrated, the Virgin Mary has her birth celebrated, and then we see John the Baptist having his birth celebrated. In each instance, that is called the nativity of whoever's being celebrated, which I didn't realize that. I always thought nativity just applied to Jesus, but apparently it's anytime you celebrate the birth of someone. You may want to put that on your next birthday card. Midsummer, however, is also a popular holiday for pagan religions. Druids, Wiccans, and other neo-pagans mark the holiday because it's the beginning of the summer solstice, and it's celebrated as a festival of bounty. I know here in the US, the Unitarian Universalists actually celebrate midsummer as a religious holiday. Other religions do as well. Now, for Shakespeare's lifetime, many of the pagan customs were mixed in and mashed up with the Catholic traditions. And of course, England is Protestant at this time. So it's all just really kind of mixed up and mixed together. One tradition from Shakespeare's lifetime was the Chester Midsummer Watch Parade. Every year in Chester, they either had a set of mystery plays that were performed to mark midsummer, or they had a parade that marched through to celebrate midsummer. Now, there were a lot of people that didn't like this going on, particularly the Puritan faction in England thought any kind of frivolity was very bad, but they didn't want these celebrations to go on. And so in 1575, the mystery plays that were happening in Chester to honor midsummer were actually canceled, but the parade continued on. And this parade was really persistent, okay? So people were coming in and saying, no, you can't do this. And they were basically doing it anyway. The Lord Mayor comes in 1599 and says, no, really, you can't do the parade. And he actually ordered that they take all the costumes associated with the midsummer parade and burn them. Now, I don't know why that wasn't the end of the parade, but I do know that I found records that said despite the Lord Mayor banning it in 1599, the parade wasn't considered permanently banned until almost 100 years later in 1675. This whole tale is a really great example of how popular celebrating Midsummer really was for Shakespeare's lifetime. But I know what you're thinking at this point. You're going, okay, Cassidy, but Shakespeare has donkeys and fairies? What? Okay, so here's the story with that. Okay, we talked about them being all mixed together and the celebrations being this just giant hodgepodge of things. And in Shakespeare's lifetime, locals celebrated Midsummer with Morris dancing and parades. They had late night drinking and they were blessing the crops, right? They wanted them to grow really well. And they were also coming through and doing ritual ceremonies to try and banish what they thought of as evil spirits or unwelcome sprites. So there you go. That's where the fairies come into Shakespeare's play. It was a general time of exorbitant excess in all things. They were overeating, over drinking, carousing, laziness, you name it. If it was possible to overdo it, Midsummer was the time that they did it. And Shakespeare's play reflects all of this excess in his storyline. But why? Why was it important to have all of this excess? I mean, it seems really, I don't know, just dangerous and overdone. And why was this important? Well, okay. So in Shakespeare's lifetime, and I'll argue this continues at least on some level in England today, people who live there can comment and weigh in on what you think about this. But it's a society that had a lot of rules and regulations, and there was a great honor and importance placed on the idea of living inside what was considered proper. And as a relief from a general life of strictness, there were several prescribed times throughout the year where all bets were off. The rules were cast aside, and there was an engorging in disorderly conduct of all stripes. This kind of disorderly conduct was a welcome celebration and even encouraged because they thought as long as you were disorderly within these confines, it was okay. And that was the expectation, was that we've got a prescribed set of time where everybody is going to be as disorderly as they can. But at the end of the celebration, everybody's expected to return to what was considered proper, return to order once the celebration was concluded. Now, what's extra fun about Shakespeare's play, Midsummer Night's Dream, is that many of the May Day and Midsummer celebrations you see in the story were actually on the decline culturally. So these would have been things that the audience knew about, but they probably weren't engaging in them personally unless they lived in some of the more rural or countryside places of England. Cities like London probably didn't have these because of people like the Lord Mayor banning that parade in 1599 and things of that nature. They would celebrate Midsummer, but these really crazier sort of celebrations were happening out in the countryside more than they were happening in London. So there were a lot of people in the 16th century audience at the Globe Theatre who would have been watching these celebrations on stage and understanding what was going on, but they may or may not have participated in that kind of celebration personally, depending on where they were from, because this kind of celebration was on its way out in terms of what was popular or what was practically happening in everyday life for this time period. So there you go. That's what Midsummer is all about. And if you'd like to take your newfound knowledge of Midsummer and complement it with a rewatch or a first time watch of Shakespeare's play A Midsummer Night's Dream, check out the links below this video. I'll link you to a place where you can watch this play online on YouTube for free. It's a very cool play. And of course, you can just search YouTube and find several as well. But I would encourage you to take what you know about Midsummer and then rewatch the play, see if that impacts what you think about it or whether or not you like it better or worse than you did before. And make sure you let me know, because I want to know what you think now that you know more about what Midsummer is all about. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.